What's up, y'all? Welcome back to a brand new video. This one's going to be a little different than anything else I've done on the channel. I'm going to be going through the film roles of my new all-time favorite actor. I would say that he was in third and then second place, and then I started doing this, and then he's moved all the way up to he's my favorite actor now, Mr. Timothée Chalamet. I'm going to be going through 23 roles of his. This is every live-action feature film role that he has done. So no short films, no TV roles, and no animated films. He's only appeared in one animated movie, and that's actually the only movie in his filmography I haven't watched. But I've watched every other movie in his filmography. This took me a good amount of time, but it was really fun. And so like I said, there's 23 films roles that I'll be ranking here. I want to make it clear I am not ranking it based on the quality of the film or how much I enjoyed the film. I am purely basing this based off Timothée Chalamet's performance in the movie. Some other roles of his that I feel like I should mention that weren't eligible for this list were, of course, Lil Timmy Tim, who is, of course, the GOAT. We got his role, Yeet Skirt, the Yeet Skirt song from SNL, as well as Big Benny from SNL. If you know, right? Now, Timothy has 4 upcoming roles that are announced. Marty Supreme, in which he plays Marty, a man who is striving to be a really good ping pong player. And that film is coming out Christmas of this year, 2025. 12/25/25. And then the other roles that he has announced is he will be reprising his role as Paul Atreides in Dune 3, Dune Messiah. They are working on a sequel to Wonka, so he'll be reprising his role as Willy Wonka. And then he's playing one of the Gallagher brothers in an Oasis biopic. I don't know which one, but I wouldn't know the difference anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But we're going to get into this. Like I mentioned, he has one animated film role in Intergalactic. He plays the role of Jimmy. I haven't seen that. So we're just going to do his live action roles. And we're just going to get right into this. Also, one other thing I want to mention before I start going is soon on my blog, I will have like a pretty lengthy essay coming out about why I think Timothée Chalamet is a really good actor. And it's going to, the premise of the essay is how I think that the term of him being the best actor of his generation is played out, because it's just so apparent, and how he really has entered like the conversation of one of the best actors like ever. I'm not saying he is that like up there yet, but how he's like already taking the strides to get there. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to get right into this. So starting with number 23 is the film Loving Leia. And where he plays young Jake Lever. A lot of his early roles here is he playing young versions of characters. That is this role here. He literally has about 30 seconds of screen time, one singular scene. This is a Hallmark movie about a Jewish woman whose husband dies. Her husband was a rabbi, so she marries his brother, who is not a practicing Jew. Not a very good movie, but Timothée Chalamet is in it for about 30 seconds, so I watched the whole thing. And it's coming in here at number 23. Now, at number 22, we have Worst Friends, where he plays young Sam, one of the primary characters, probably the main character. He has twice as many scenes in this one as the last one. This is probably the worst movie in his filmography. It's worse than Loving Leia. And it's kind of funny because in those 2 scenes, somehow he is like the best actor in the movie, even though a lot of actors, the other actors are getting like an hour and a half of screen time. He's getting like 2 15, 30-second scenes, and he's the best actor in the movie just because it's really bad. Now, coming in at number 21, we're going to go through these first few pretty fast. Number 21, we have Love the Coopers, in which he played the role of Charlie Cooper, one of the titular Coopers. He exists a little more in this movie than he did in the previous 2, but he's a small part of a really big ensemble. This is not a very good Christmas movie. It's not one that I would ever rewatch. In this one, though, he got a nasty makeout scene, so I guess that's notable. And I mean like nasty, where it's like 2 people that don't know how to kissing, and that's the point. And so that was pretty tough to watch, but whatever. Next up, we have Men, Women, and Children, where he plays the role of Danny Vance, though his character never got named on screen, so I had no idea that that's what the character's name was until I went and looked it up. And I'll just say the reason this ranks over the last one is because he's just like a very run-of-the-mill high school student in this, but there's part of the movie where he gets body slammed, And I've never seen someone get body slammed the way that he does in this movie, and so I just felt like that was worth mentioning. No, number 19, we have the film Hostiles, which is a Western starring Christian Bale and Rosamund Pike, and he plays the role of Private Philip Desjardins, who is a French-Canadian member of this group that is escorting some Native Americans. And literally in my notes, all I put is spoilers for this movie because he dies pretty early on. I literally just put Chakre Bleu, they shot my boy. And that's all I got on that one. Coming in at number 18, we have Interstellar, where he plays the role of young Tom Cooper. Now, this is probably the best movie in his entire filmography, which is saying a lot because there are some pretty heavy hitters. But he just doesn't have a ton of screen time in it. There's not a whole lot for him to do. He's just playing the role of Matthew McConaughey's teenage son, and his younger sister, Murph, played by Mackenzie Foy, is kind of the star of that area of the film. He becomes Casey Affleck, so do with that what you will. Number 17, we have 1 and 2, where he plays the role of Zach. This film, I had a hard time putting this above Interstellar because the movie I didn't really enjoy it. His performance does clear his performance in Interstellar just because he's one of the two primary characters. It's a very boring movie, though. It's like, if you just read the synopsis of it, you'd be like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. But then it's just like nothing actually happens in this movie. It's just a lot of like you watching nothing. So, yeah. Now, number 16, we have the Adderall Diaries, which I believe this is his last time playing the younger version of a character, where he plays teenage Stephen Elliott. Once again, he's the best actor in this film, but he just has a limited amount of screen time. His performance, he plays a young version of James Franco, who is the main character's character. His performance is so much better than James Franco's in this movie. It's more effective, it's more emotional, and it feels like a precursor to a role later in his career that he would take on in Beautiful Boy. But this, again, best actor in the movie, but not a very good movie. Now, number 15, we have The French Dispatch, where he plays Zeffirelli B. I don't love Wes Anderson's movies, though I like that actors get to just kind of be silly in them. I think I would imagine as an actor, a Wes Anderson movie would probably be one of the funnest to work on because it's just like they're being silly, they're being goofy, and it seems like there's just like a lot of people that really like working with each other. So he got to be silly in this, and you know, it's a fine movie. Again, part of a much larger ensemble, and he's a fairly minor part in it. Number 14, we have Best Picture nominee Don't Look Up, where he plays the role of Yule. Again, he got to be silly. Both it and The French Dispatch kind of suffer from him just being part of a much larger ensemble. I think that's probably the biggest flaw of the film Don't Look Up, is there's just like too much going on. The movie actually ends, though, with everyone... spoilers with everyone dying from a meteor hitting the earth, but it ends with a voiceover of Timothée Chalamet's character doing like a prayer that it really carries. It's a simple and feels like a very genuine prayer, but it kind of carries his performance here because it goes from silly to like I don't know, wrapping up the film very nicely. Now, number 13, we have the film Bones and All, in which he plays Lee. This movie was probably the hardest movie I've ever had to watch. It took me a couple different attempts to watch it. Not because of his performance or any of the performances, just because of the premise of the film. But his performance in it is very solid. It's a good kind of supporting role. And yeah, I mean, it definitely made the watch a little easier, but it was still a really tough watch. Number 12, we have A Rainy Day in New York, when he plays Gatsby Wells. He's definitely the highlight of this movie. He has really good chemistry with Elle Fanning, and even though they play a couple in this movie, they don't really share a ton of screen time. He actually shares a lot of screen time with Selena Gomez in this movie, which is kind of funny. This film is much more overshadowed by the behind-the-scenes controversy, kind of rightfully so, because that controversy is very prominent, and also just the movie's not very good and kind of should be lost to the sands of time. Which I saw somebody posting a picture, and I think it was like Dune. It was either Dune. I think it was Dune Part 2 and Rainy Day in New York, and it was like the best and worst film of Timothée Chalamet's filmography. That tells me that he hasn't watched Worst Friends or Loving Leah or 1 and 2 or Men, Women, and Children, because those are easily worse than A Rainy Day in New York. Now, at number 11, We have, I think, what is his first like primary? He is the main character role here as the King, where he plays King Henry V. The film overall is pretty slow. I feel like I'm saying the same thing here a lot, but his role is, again, the standout part. It's a very understated performance. It's not one that's going to be talked about, I think, years to come when his filmography continues to build itself, but it's a very solid movie, and he's great in it. I think that's kind of the thing, and that's why Timothée Chalamet is so good, is every single one of these movies, even if the movie itself is slow or boring or hard to watch or just not very good, he consistently is good and usually the best actor in the film. Now, at number 10, we have his role in Lady Bird, where he plays Kyle. And in my notes, I put one sentence for each note, and then I kind of built them out a little bit, but some of them I just still have one sentence. And my sentence for this is, how is he just going to come in and riz her up like that? So there you go. Then he becomes such a douche canoe, just like being a jerk for no reason. But it's good acting in what is probably his most unlikable role, because he's just a slimy teenage boy. And it works really well. He works really well in that role. Now, at number 9, we have Hot Summer Nights, where he plays the main role of Daniel Middleton. Again, I know I've said this several times. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. A very forgettable movie where the only notable and redeemable thing really is Timothée Chalamet's performance. He's played a troubled young teenager many, many times, but somehow he does it extremely different in every movie, which I think is pretty impressive and is a testament to his versatility, even when his roles maybe are not that diverse, at least early on in some of these different films. And Hot Summer Nights, let me just say this. It's forgettable, but it's not bad, especially compared to a lot of the other movies here. It's a decent movie. At number 8, we have Miss Stevens, where he plays the role of Billy Mittman. And he outacted every single person in this movie by a long shot. It's not even close. His role, his character, everything about him almost feels out of place in this movie, because it's just like he's tiers above everyone else. And no offense to the other actors involved, it's just, there you go. And he's another troubled young teen in this one. So, no, number 7, we have Little Women, where he plays the role of Theodore Lawrence, aka Laurie. And again, this is just what I put in my notes. The one sentence I wrote is, how is he going to come in and riz up every single one of them like that? Because he has points where he's risen up every single one of these March sisters. I think this is hands down his best supporting performance. This may be a controversial take, especially because Saoirse Ronan was robbed, at least a lot of people say. I haven't watched all the movies from that year, but a lot of people think she was robbed of the Oscar that year. Florence Pugh also got an Oscar nomination for Little Women. I think his may be the best performance in the entire movie, but, whatever. Now, number 6, we have Wonka, where he plays the titular role of Willy Wonka. Come with me and you'll be in a world of true imagination. Now, Destiny over there, she knows the real star of Wonka is the Candy Man, but we won't talk about that. Now, I'll say that you've never had chocolate like this. This is hands down his most fun performance. It's so different from all of his other roles. It really feels more reminiscent of what he does when he hosts Saturday Night Live than a lot of his other film roles. I've seen recently that his movie Marty Supreme is being described just as a straight up comedy. Eventually it was saying it's going to be more of a drama with some comedic aspects. Everything I've seen recently said it's just going to be a straight up sports comedy about ping pong. And I really have high hopes for that, because he really is a great comedic actor as well. It's just he's one of the best dramatic actors ever. He's not one of the best comedic actors ever, though he is a great comedic actor. And so I'm glad that got to shine. It really shined here in Wonka. I'm excited for the sequel. He captured the same magic that Gene Wilder does. Not Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp's creepy in that movie. Maybe in real life too. He captured the same magic as Gene Wilder back in the day, but it doesn't feel like he's doing a bad impression or impersonation of Gene Wilder. So I think that's huge. And also he got to show off that he can sing a little bit here, which again, his singing we'll get to later, because what's going to be up there pretty high. No, at number 5, we have Beautiful Boy, where he played the role of Nick Sheff. It's a really, really effective performance. Super emotional. Not his most emotional performance, we'll get to that later, but one of his most emotional performances, and it's so incredibly grounded. It is his most grounded performance, I'll say that. It should have gotten him an Oscar nomination. I went and looked at the nominees from this year. It should have gotten him an Oscar nomination, and if you're curious why I said Little Women is his best supporting performance, but then I have this here, and he was nominated for the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor. He's the main character of the movie. I understand that it focuses kind of on Steve Carell's role as, I think, David Chef is his name, but he's Timothée Chalamet's character's father. But Timothée Chalamet, I think, really is the primary character here, so I don't consider this a supporting performance, but very good role. Now, at number 4, we have Dune, where he plays Paul Atreides. Now, he does such a great job in this movie playing a young, naive kid who just clearly has loads of potential to just rule a planet, a galaxy, or whatever. It sets up a brilliant, interesting science fiction world just with him at the center of it, similar to like a Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. It's like there's so much going on, so many crazy things, but it's like he's the center of everything. He shows this excitement, right, of learning about the Fremen people and learning about Arrakis and learning about the spice, but he has like a mix of timidness, like he's almost afraid to get fully out. He's a little bashful, a little shy, but also just like kind of exudes confidence in certain things, especially in the fight at the end of the movie. And I think they do really well planting the seeds that he is kind of like this like potential coming Messiah in later movies. Now, at number 3, we have his role in A Complete Unknown as Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan. So this should be an Oscar-winning performance, and I'm still not over it. A tear was shed by me. It wasn't actually, but the biopic itself, I'm sorry, I say biopic, I know I should say biopic, it makes so much more sense, but I have a hard time. It's very run-of-the-mill. It's not like the best movie ever. It's a very standard musician biographical film, but it stands on the back of several really great performances. Monica Barbaro, Elle Fanning, Edward Norton's decent, but really just on the back of Timothée Chalamet. That is what makes this movie so good, and he should have won the Oscar for it. Now, at number 2, we have Call Me By Your Name, in which he plays Elio Perlman. You know, this is the role that put him on the map for a reason. He portrays a young character that has so much emotional depth, which is just something you don't see often in films. It's usually, young characters are usually pretty one-note characters. There's not a lot to them, but he's a character with so much depth. And so I think that's awesome. And it's hands down, easily his most emotional performance. I think the most iconic part of the film perhaps is him just crying into the fireplace at the end of the movie. And it's like that clip is just like, it just shows these emotional depths that a 19-year-old actor, it's like, shouldn't be able to reach, but he does so well. He potentially was robbed of the Oscar this year, not gonna lie, but I will say I haven't seen all the performances that were nominated, so I'm not gonna say whether it was he wasn't. I just think it's worth mentioning because a lot of people do feel that way. Now, number 1, we have, if you know what movie is left in his filmography that I haven't talked about, then you know what it is. Number 1, Dune Part 2 as Paul Atreides Muad'Dib. Yes, I'm putting this above both his role as Elio and Bob Dylan, his Oscar-nominated roles. I'm putting this here because, yes, I'm going to look right into the camera. Bob Dylan should have won him the Oscar, but it was not even his best acting performance of 2024. And, you know, I'll get a little more into how I think Dune should get some more love, but he fully transitions from the aforementioned kid that we talked about a few entries ago to this man that is easily believable to just be the emperor of everyone. He brings levity to a role, like I kind of said with Elio in Call Me By Your Name, how he brought emotion I didn't know an actor that young could bring. I understand this was almost like 10 years after that, but he brings levity to a role that I didn't know an actor that young could bring. It's like levity that I'm not necessarily comparing him to these actors, because I think these actors are still obviously tiers above him, but levity that you would usually see from older actors like a Denzel Washington or Leonardo DiCaprio, or these actors that are established. It's like, yes, Timothée Chalamet definitely has established himself, but not to that point. But in this movie, it's just like every time he comes on screen, it's just like your breath is taken away. It's fantastic. There are so many good moments. His reluctance early on in the film to be this leader, and then he just snaps and transitions to where he is this full-fledged Messiah. He is fully bought in, and his speech in front of all the Fremen people is amazing. The knife fight at the end of the movie is just, I need to talk about it because it's one of my favorite movie scenes ever. The way he carries his voice and projects his voice throughout the film, his body movement in it, the confidence that he exudes. Lisa and Al Gaib, man. I'm going to call this right now that Dune Messiah will, in 2 years, he is going to win the Oscar for Best Actor for Dune Messiah. I think he'll get a nomination for Marty Supreme the following year, but I think he's going to win it for Dune Messiah. I'm calling that right now. And there we go. That is all 23 of Timothée Chalamet's acting roles summed up right there. And it's kind of funny how I go and watch like 23 movies I'm looking at my timer here for what is going to be like a 20-minute YouTube video. But you know what? I had a really good time doing it. I'm glad I did. And I can confidently say that he's my favorite actor ever now, because I don't know if there's any other actor that I've watched every movie in their filmography, unless they've only been in like one movie. But there's definitely not any other actor that I intentionally sought out and watched every movie in their filmography, because Timothée Chalamet is just that man. Stay tuned for that blog article of me talking about why he's that man. I know my wife is definitely tired of me talking about Timothée Chalamet, so I'm going to end this here and go eat some cookies. I think I cut that part out, so they don't even know what I'm talking about now. Destiny walked in front of the camera to get some cookies out of the oven, and I cut it out, but that's what I'm referencing. It's a callback, but that was a deleted scene, so it doesn't even make sense now. So I'm just going to end it here before I say anything else that doesn't make sense. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. I also have a podcast that comes out weekly on Saturdays. You can find that link down below. Follow me on TikTok. Follow me on Letterboxd. Follow me on Spotify. Watch my blog and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yeah, show me some support. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.